everyone, and thanks for tuning into Your Natural Health right here on News 12 New Jersey, as local news gets. I'm Dr. Derek Silva, a practicing internist with an interest in complementary medicine. You know, medicine today is quite diverse, and the world of natural medicine and the world of pharmaceuticals are two very important facets in total patient care, yet they don't always work in harmony. Well, on this program, I attempt to bring together what I call the best of both worlds. And today, we're talking about enhancing your lives by focusing on the positive. And joining me today is Dr. Barbara Becker Holstein, author of The Enchanted Self, and she's in practice in the area of Long Branch, which is in Monmouth County. Dr. Holstein, welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. I'm so delighted to be here.
It's a pleasure. First of all, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a psychologist. I started out as a teacher. I've also been a school psychologist. And what happened was I was in private practice with my dear husband, Dr. Russell Holstein. We're in Long Branch together. And I felt frustrated. I felt there was something wrong in the picture of current psychology. What I did is I went out and I interviewed women who were not in my practice, talked to them, found out what bothers them, what's on their minds, and I discovered two things. One is, yeah, we all carry bad things and memories that haven't worked for us and criticisms. Sure, that's true. But I also discovered that everybody has a part of them that works really well, some sort of enhanced positive place, whether they turn that into a garden, reading to grandchildren, doing volunteer work. Everyone has it. The problem is there was no name really given to it, and we don't document and encourage it in our society. So I decided, let's begin to give it a name. That's when I found the words, The Enchanted Self.
Now, you said that you interviewed people. These are clients of yours?
No.
These are other psychologists?
These were women between 35 and the late 70s. Friends of friends of friends.
I see.
It was a case study research project I ran on my own just because I had this hunch that we need to know more about the inner workings of ourselves, particularly women. It isn't the only research that goes on. Of course, many people do case study research, but what it led to for me was the entranceway into a field that was just being birthed around the same time my first book, The Enchanted Self, A Positive Therapy, came out. That field is positive psychology. That is a field designed to help people become aware of their strengths and what is right with themselves, rather than just focusing through a disease model, which is a standard medical model. When we go in with a complaint, doctor, I feel terrible, and
right.
Then the doctor goes from there. Well, gee, you really have this wrong, you really have that wrong, and yeah, I agree, you're not so good in this area. And so you leave, let's say you've gone to see a clinician, you leave saying, oh, wow, I have character problems, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, this is awful. While my attitude and the work I do through positive psychology is, yes, we'll document your problems with your wife, we'll document your business problems, maybe repetitive personality problems, but let's see your talents, let's see your potential, let's see your coping skills, let's see what your dreams are all about, let's see your resiliency, how you bounce back from trauma, and I bet you're going to walk out feeling hopeful.
How common is something like this with children? I mean, what I see here, and you said that you worked in the school system.
Yes, I have.
I see a lot of negative feedback that is given to people in general, but to children especially. Have you applied this to children also?
I have, absolutely, as a school psychologist in my private practice also. I always, when I work with children, and I do a lot of play therapy, I try to enhance feelings of self-esteem and that they're really going to get it and they're really on the right track, and wow, that's so creative. And yes, you do have to point out, if you're having trouble with the teacher, it might be because you're doing this, you're standing up when you shouldn't, teachers don't like that, you still have to be a realist.
So, I mean, this is something then that, this is almost an oxymoron. positive and psychology doesn't go together.
It should mix. It's the essence of the field is really about mental hygiene.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow in our society it got turned into depression, anxiety, flaws, but in essence, the best of psychology can help us become thriving, happy, productive people.
Uh-huh. What would Sigmund Freud say to you?
He might say, that's very interesting. Let me see now. Did you have any dreams last night? No, I
because,
think,
I mean, let me say this. The reason I ask the question is what is the criticism from your field in what you're doing?
Currently, there really is very little criticism. What happened was this field just opened up kind of out of the blue with a few pathfinders, of which I am one of them, maybe a dozen other people across the country writing books. You know how it happens around the same year?
Sure.
Everything happens. And the field is a little confused. They're concerned that we don't overdo the happiness principle, But on the other hand, many, many psychologists are saying, it's time. That's great. I'm going to build some of these positive questionnaires or some of these ways of reframing. I'm going to build them in with my clients. Yes, it's overdue.
Interesting. And what has been, give me an example of one of the things that you've really, a case study, if you will.
Okay, well, particularly with women. For example, I'll just give you a very brief one. I often get women who are down on themselves. They have critical husbands. They don't necessarily want to leave the husband, but there are lots of issues. So I had this one woman, and she had bought some beautiful bookcases, bookshelving. Her husband, from the moment she walked in with them, said all the typical things that I often hear. Well, those are stupid. They'll fall off the wall. You think you know how to hang them up? Don't think I'm helping you. This type of stuff. Very demoralizing. The bookshelves went under her bed for years. In therapy with me, we worked on a number of things, not just the bookshelves, but we worked on her doing her homework, learning to gain strength, to learn how to meet her needs and negotiate for herself. Long story short, she finally hung the bookshelves. Her husband didn't even notice for 3 weeks. He finally said, oh, those are okay, they're nice. Long story short, we carry these demons that limit our lives. We think we can't do things. And my purpose is to help people get the strength through learning what their homework is to get somewhere, to fall in love with themselves as a wonderful person with a story, and let's get going.
Interesting. Very symbolic, taking the bookshelves from underneath the bed and hanging them up and starting a new life type thing. I think it's beautiful symbolism. One of the things that I have really focused on with my children is the idea of positive reinforcement. Is this the same thing?
Yes, but this is even more complicated because I'm a psychologist, which is, even more involved than, say, being a teacher. I do think about people's unconscious and their repetitive habits that we get into mentally. So when I'm building up somebody, I am also thinking to myself, she'll probably make a similar mistake a dozen times while she's with me. How can I give her courage and hope each time we go around it, so that every time she feels awkward with her boss and still stumbles, she gets a little bit stronger. So I'm thinking of the complexity. While a parent or a teacher may be more, you're just throwing it out there. You're throwing it from your heart.
Right.
I do have a specialized cognitive map I'm thinking about.
I see. Okay. Well, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this, and I want to get into what this map is, what these models are, and perhaps some other issues that we will be able to discuss. Folks, you please stay with us. We'll be back in just a bit. I'm Dr. Derek De Silva. Don't go away. Welcome back to Your Natural Health right here on News 12 New Jersey, as local news gets. I'm your host, Dr. Derek De Silva, along with Dr. Barbara Becker Holstein, who's a psychologist and the author of The Enchanted Self. So wonderful. That was your first book that kind of set you up in the field? That's what you were telling me?
That's right.
Elaborate on that a little bit for me.
Well, I was so impassioned with this message that I wanted to get out to the public that we can throw off the negativity of news and criticisms and feeling we have to be beautiful. Ironically, look at all the makeover shows today.
Yeah.
But still that, you know, each person has a message, has a song to sing, has a place in our universe. And I wanted to teach people. And so I just got the energy, that superhuman energy, when it's time for you to write a book. And I pulled together all my case studies and I reflected on my own growth through the positive lens of the Enchanted Self. And I sat and wrote a book. And we all know that that's a torturous experience, you know.
Yes, we do.
Very time-consuming and very rigorous. But what I didn't know at the moment was that I was part of this whole emerging field. I thought that, you know, like most people, when you invent something, you're alone, you're unique.
Right.
No, there was a bunch of us who were feeling the pressure of a negative world and making efforts. How can we correct it through the treatment room? How can we correct it through the ways we teach people?
Tell me about that treatment room. I mean, do you use a different setting?
I've been trained as a psychotherapist. It's the same setting, but I take my principles that I outline in the Enchanted Self of positive therapy. I'm always looking to help people reframe the story of their lives. Quickie. I had a client, she had a pretty miserable mother and a couple of relatives that were always criticizing her. After we worked on reframing her life story and all her talents coming out, she said to me, you know, I just want to tell you, I can see my life differently now. Even though my mother and my relatives criticized me, they gave me, first of all, a lot of talents. They taught me how to knit, they taught me how to bake, they taught me how to have a vegetable garden. Great things. But you know, the criticisms taught me to guard my tongue. And I am so successful in my work. I'm a top employee, and I never criticize. I always think so carefully.
So
wonderful. I took what they gave me, and I turned it, and it has worked to make me a resilient, strong person.
Now, you must have some kind of a map
Yes.
or a guide.
Yes.
You have what?
I do have a flow sheet now.
Yes, 7 gateways
yes,
to enhancement.
This is after
Tell
working on this through for 10 years. The 7 gateways, and these are so easy. Everyone listening can link into them. The first gateway is recognizing that you do have talents and you do have potential. And it's not a bad idea to sit and list them. And if you can't think of a darn one, go back to when you were 10 and list what you saw as your talents and strengths as a 10-year-old.
Everybody has talent.
Yes.
Everybody has talent.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, you might have to then reframe them and try to reinvent them. Obviously, if you were a dancer at 10 and you're waiting for your arthritic knee operation now, you know, you may want to reframe it into a love of dance.
Let me back up for a second. You've used the word reframe.
Reframe. Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
reframe a couple of times. What do you mean by that?
That means taking the same old stuff but seeing it through a new lens. In other words, is the glass half full or is it half empty?
Okay.
Am I thrilled?
So a new outlook on perhaps an old image.
Interpretation
Okay.
of an old image.
Okay.
You know,
fine.
a love of dance, I can't be a dancer. I could pay for the little girl down the street to maybe have dance and no one else would ever do that.
Okay.
Who knows? How do I reinvent that into purpose now?
Okay.
So
talent is number one.
Absolutely.
Look at your talents.
Look at your talents.
Number 2.
And your dreams. The second one.
Talent/dreams. Okay, important.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, because my dreams are not the same as your dreams. We
Okay.
all have different dreams. Second gateway is falling in love with ourselves again. And I mean by that, tell the story of your life to yourself, maybe your grandchildren, your spouse, friends. Make it into a legend. You know, even that first divorce, whatever it was horrible, maybe you misconstrued certain things, but you've leaped ahead so far. You know, what has happened since? What has come out of it?
Okay.
And so we all have stories. Some of them are hilarious. One of my funniest stories is I had food poisoning in Maine. I thought I was going to die. Saw a doctor. The hospital was 25 miles south. He said, the best lesson I ever learned. I said, I have to get to the hospital. He said, you have to get to the hospital. I said, yes, I have to. He said, it's 25 miles south. I said, I can't make it. He said, you'll have to. Biggest learning lesson I ever had.
There you go. Okay.
So the story of our lives. The third gateway is our homework. Don't think that happiness comes cheap. Happiness is work, but so is feeling miserable. Do you ever feel how much tension you have when you feel lousy?
Mm-hmm.
It's in your body. You know, you feel droopy. It's sometime around your heart. Everything, that's a negative work energy. Feeling happy is positive work energy. So the third gateway is, what is some of the homework I have to do? Just to get a degree, maybe I'm fooling myself.
Okay.
I'm not going to get that job without getting the degree.
Let me stop you right there. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about what? What do we have? Four more things that we can do to make yourself happy. When we return, we will wrap up our show. So please stick around with Your Natural Health. Welcome back, folks, and thank you very much for staying with us right here on Your Natural Health and News 12 New Jersey, as local news gets. I'm Dr. Derek De Silva, and we're speaking with Dr. Barbara Becker Holstein today. She's the author of the book, Your Enchanted Self, is that right?
The Enchanted Self.
The Enchanted Self, a positive therapy for everything that we need to do. Okay, we were going through your tools for getting through life, keep being happy. Number one was look at your talents, look at your dreams. Number two was love ourselves, tell the stories, and we have to do homework.
Yes.
We have to do homework to keep happy and be happy.
But once we finish the homework, we're entitled to number 4, which is the joy. That's the gift. We're entitled to replenish ourselves, take good care of ourselves, and find what makes us feel joyful. And that's the core of enchantment. That's the core, when you find what really replenishes you and makes you feel like you're in stride. It doesn't mean everything's perfect, but you feel whole, you feel you have purpose. And that requires looking back, seeing what your talents are, figuring out what your purpose is, but don't forget the joy. Please take time for it.
Okay.
Take the bubble bath, take the trip to Hawaii.
That's right.
And I'm going to Hawaii this summer too, I can't wait. The fifth gateway and the sixth gateway, I'll just say very quickly, the fifth is don't stay alone, don't stay isolated. All the research shows that depression gets fed off of isolation. And you know, when you feel blue, that's when you tend not to call your friends.
Right.
This is something that we have to consciously fight. So when you feel blue, it may be the time to pick up the phone and call the right friend who can maybe tolerate, hey, I'm kind of down today. But don't isolate.
Okay, number 6?
The 6th is learn. Don't stop learning. You know, a bird can mentor you if you bother to listen. Look at that wonderful little voice. He manages to have a chirping song. He might not have even found a worm. He's still upbeat. You know, learn from people, from books, from mentors, from animals. Just go ahead. And the last gateway, and I say this is your fallback gateway because we never know if we're really going to wake up sunny side up. This is the gateway of positive action. Remember in church and in synagogue, the old stuff about good deeds. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to be nice to someone, to give some charity, or tutor somebody, or run someone's errands, or just say hello to somebody, give a smile in a supermarket instead of pushing ahead.
That's right.
You know, because it starts the whole cycle. Not only do you send out positive energy, but your own biochemistry starts to respond because you've done good things.
Now, let me just ask you very quickly, we have very little time left, the difference between a coach and somebody like yourself.
Right. Well, a coach will inspire just as I'm trying to inspire. However, there is a lot of background to the human mind. It's a very profound instrument. And the field of psychology and being credentialed in psychology really gives me and my colleagues an advantage to know when someone's pathology really needs medication,
Right.
to know when someone needs something that we're not, that is beyond what we're talking about today.
Dr. Holstein, a contact number, people can call
Yes.
you, they can see you as patients if
Absolutely.
they'd like to. Would you mind? And then we're going to put it up on the screen also.
877-B, the letter B as in boy, joyful.
Okay.
Or 732-571-1200 in Long Branch.
Very good. And then your website
Yes,
also?
I'd love to have people come. www.enchantedself, that's one word, enchantedself.com.
Very good. I thank you very much for
Thank
joining me.
you
It's been
so
a pleasure
much.
to have you with us. And folks, here's a reminder to find the contact information for Dr. Holstein. All you need to do is go to news12.com and click on numbers and links. Thank you very much for watching Your Natural Health. God bless you all, and until next time, I'm Dr. Derek De Silva, and may you always be blessed with good health.